Hey folks. Okay, this is going to be another extra credit assignment for you. Before we do the assignment though, let's go ahead and take a few moments, if you don't mind, just to get here and get present with ourselves. So if you would find some kind of posture you would like to be in while we do that. This is going to be very short. And if you would like, you could close your eyes or you can keep them open, whatever you would choose. And then whenever you feel ready, if you would, turn your attention, as we generally do, to your breath and your breathing. Just be present with your body as it breathes. Notice how pleasant it is just to simply be here with the breath. Take a couple nice, long, deep breaths. And as you do, see if you can breathe all the way down into the depths of your abdomen. And now if you would, look around in your body and see if there are any places of stress or tension that you're holding in your body. If you notice any places like that, just see if you can let them go. You can intentionally relax those places. Sometimes that will help to let it go a little. And you can try breathing into those places of tension and see if the tension will leave the body with your breath. And it may or may not. But just allow it to dissipate to whatever degree it's willing to. And take a moment to look into your mind and see if there's anything going on in your mind that would tend to pull your attention away from this video and what we're going to be doing in this video. Notice if there's any worry or concern, any kind of frustration, any kind of anticipation or fantasy. If there is anything like that going on in your mind, just see if you can let that go. And give yourself permission to just fully be here with this experience that we're having together on this video. And now just check in for a moment with your emotional state. And practice for a moment just being here, present with whatever you're feeling. No need to make it go away or try to change anything about the way you're feeling. Just see if you can fully be here with it and hold that feeling, whatever it may be, in compassionate awareness. And then return your attention to your breath and your breathing. Okay, very good. So I thought today we might look at the ways we've been conditioned to try and get ourselves to do things, to do the things some part of us doesn't want to do, or to not do the things some part of us does want to do, and the alternative to the conditioned ways. So one way of talking about the way we're conditioned to try to control our behavior, essentially, is that we use rewards and punishments. And I'm sure that's obvious to you as you look at the way that you were brought up and at the way you see how you go about trying to control your behavior. And so let's look at that somewhat specifically for a moment. So I'm going to do the thing that I've done before where I ask you some questions and then get you to stop and pause the video and make some notes and then come back and get the next question. So the first question is, what are the rewards that you use? What kind of rewards? Pleasurable things, typically, or things that make you feel good about yourself. So it can be internal or external. It can be external things that you give yourself. It can be internal things that you give yourself. What kind of rewards do you use to attempt to influence your behavior and try to get yourself to do what you want to do? So that's the first question. And so hit pause now, if you will, and then come back when you're done. All right, very good. Okay, so the next question is the obvious one that follows on that. What are the punishments that you use? How do you punish yourself when you don't do what you have said you're going to do, or when you do what you said you're not going to do, in order to try to control your behavior? Okay, and don't forget, just like with the rewards, they can be internal or external things. So you might punish yourself by denying yourself some external thing, or you might punish yourself, for example, by calling yourself names or something like that. So what do you do? What kind of punishments do you use in an attempt to try to control your behavior? Okay, great. Welcome back. Okay, and so now if you just look in general, and you can do some mapping with this or whatever you want to do, just explore how do you use rewards and punishments to try to control your behavior. You could pick an incident or two that you can remember where you've done that, or something you repeatedly do, like you're trying to control your behavior around, stopping doing some particular behavior. Whatever kind of makes sense to you. But take a moment now and just make some notes about how do you use rewards and punishments? How were you taught to use rewards and punishments? So how was that done to you, and how do you do that now? Okay, so take a few moments to explore that. Okay, very good. All right, so now let's look a bit at the alternative. And this is very much what we've been practicing in the class, but I want to put some particular language to it, okay? Just to make it sort of, to kind of outline it on a process level. So to me, the alternative to rewards and punishment, and the alternative to try and control our behavior, is by setting boundaries for ourselves, and by using the boundaries to create awareness of our processes, and through that awareness and through self-love to sort of facilitate the process of doing what we really want to do in our hearts. Okay, so here's what that looks like, and this will sound familiar. So a boundary is just some kind of line you draw somewhere in order to basically to get your attention. So and you know what those are. You might say, okay, well, I want to let go of this, of eating sugar, or wasting lots of time on my phone, or the kind of things that people have been working on in the class. So you draw a line like that, and then the effectiveness of drawing that line is it causes you to see something. Like if you don't have a boundary, it's really hard to see things because there's nothing to run into. You're just kind of wandering around doing things and getting talked into doing things and talked out of doing certain things. But if you haven't made some kind of intention or some kind of commitment to something, then you don't have something to run into to cause you to see what's going on. But if you set a boundary, you do. If you've said to yourself, for this week, I'm not going, or this day, or this hour even, I'm not going to eat sugar to see, just so I can see what's going on, then that will cause you to see, because when you run into that boundary, you say, conditioned mind says, or some part of you says, oh, I really want a cookie, or I really want a piece of chocolate. And you have that boundary that says, no, we've decided we're not going to do that. And so because you have that boundary, then, and because that boundary causes you to say no to doing the behavior, then that's going to cause you to look to see all what's driving that behavior. And so you have a chance to see, what the voices are saying. You can see maybe like, what is that trying to take care of? Is there some kind of emotion or something that's trying to pacify or avoid? You get to see maybe there's some kind of belief that's there that you're trying to get away from. I'm feeling like a loser because this thing happened that wasn't perfect, or I felt like I screwed something up or something, and I'm feeling like a loser, and maybe I'm taking some beatings, and I want to get away from that. And so I'm going to use this thing, whatever it might be, to get away from it. But if I've decided I'm not going to use it, I'm not going to use something to get away from my experience, then here I am, I'm headed towards the thing, and then I run into that boundary, and then I have to stop, and then what's going to be there is some awareness of what's happening. Okay? So that to me that's how we use practice in order to work with this stuff and get past this stuff, as we've been talking about in the class. And then the other thing we've been talking about in the class is love, is self-love, being able to hold ourselves in love and compassion. And so, so what's the way beyond those processes? Where, well, it's we have to have the information. We have to be aware of what's going on, which is what I was just talking about. We become aware of what's going on, and then and it's really generally really clear when you're aware of what's going on, what the alternative is. In terms of the behavior, but a lot of times it's really unclear of how to get there. Like, how do I accomplish this thing that I've set out to accomplish, or how do I let go of this thing that I'm trying to let go of, without using rewards and punishment? Without punishing myself when I do it or don't do it. Well, the alternative to that is love. It's our love for ourselves that comes out of an awareness of what has been going on and the consequences of that allow us to get past what we get past. So it's funny because at the monastery where I train, this is the example I always use, a bunch of us, interestingly, were ex-smokers. And so we, including myself, it's a very, very long time ago, but we would not often, but occasionally talk about quitting smoking and how we got past the addiction to nicotine. And the story, we all had the same story. And the story was that, we wanted to quit for a long time, couldn't. But finally what happened was, and so there's that boundary there. It's like, I don't want to be doing this. I want to stop, but not being able to stop. And what finally allowed a person to stop is by paying attention and seeing the consequences, of course, there's big consequences of smoking. It makes you feel terrible. Your lungs don't work right. You get out of shape. And all that kind of stuff, and seeing the consequences. And then there is this love for the person, love for the human that arises as from a place of compassion awareness. We would see the human who's trapped in this addiction and the consequences on the life of that human, and that love would carry the person out of the place of that addiction and into a place of freedom. And the way people would talk about it is, it's just suddenly, I just can't do this anymore. I can't do this to myself anymore. I love myself too much to continue to indulge in this behavior. And then suddenly, and this was my experience too, suddenly it's just gone. It's just not there anymore. So that's the alternative. So what I want you to do now is I want you to look look around in your life, in your past. It could be in the recent past as a result of the work you've done in the class, or it could be something from a more distant past. But think of a time when you did that, when love carried you through in some way, even if it was only one time. When love carried you through, when you had something, an intention, we had a boundary, and love carried you through to being successful and being able to keep some commitment to yourself. Okay? So think of a time like that and just make some notes about that. What was that like? You can map that out too if you wanted to. What was that like? How were you within yourself? What kind of things might you say to yourself from the place that allowed you to do that, like that? Okay? So take a few moments to explore that now, if you would. Okay, very good. Welcome back. Thank you for that. I'd love to hear what you see about both things, about rewards and punishments, and about the alternative, which is setting boundaries for ourselves and getting past the boundaries with awareness and self-love. And what I what I would suggest that you do going forward from here is practice this. Practice this specifically, the alternative. Setting, we all set boundaries for ourselves in the class, and practice being aware, and practice using the love that we've been exploring as a result of the previous exercise. Using that love in order to help yourself do what you have said you want to do and not do what you said you don't want to do. Okay, but from a loving place, not from a place of control. Okay? And after you practice with that for a couple of days, let us know what you see. All right, there you go. There's your assignment. Take care, everyone. Be well. Thanks so much, as always, for showing up for this in the way that you do. And I'll see you in the class.